you everyone for joining us today. My name is Gayatri Vishwanathan. I'm called Guy most often than not, and I'm the CTO in Maarga Systems. I've been working especially in the collaboration space for nearly 20 years now in both the Microsoft and the IBM platforms. And I'm also an avid runner and a cook, so that's just a quick intro about me. Katie, on to you.
Hi everybody, my name is Katie Nagraj, everybody calls us Katie. So I have 16 years of experience in messaging and collaboration. So I am originally a Lotus Notes person. Then I have experience in migrations to the cloud and design and implementation of the messaging infrastructure.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks for a quick intro. So, as an agenda today, what we thought we would do, and which is why it's also called the Pandora's box, is more, discuss what we have seen across different organizations, encountering some challenges, encountering certain preparations that organizations need to do. And Katie and I thought we will share our thoughts so that it would benefit the larger community. So we wanted to pick a few topics that would be of most interest. That's what we identified as part of the agenda today. As Scott said, please feel free to share your questions in the questions box with Scott, and we will take up as many as possible today. So one of the things that I wanted to start off, and Scott, if you can do the first poll, I would like to understand where you are all in your migration journey. I mean, some of you may not even be planning, but where I would like to understand where you are in the journey.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Guy. Okay, I'm going to launch the first poll here. So quickly, just let us know where you're at in your migration journey. And I will share the results with everyone in just a moment. So we're already at half of us have voted. So this is good. This means everybody's still wide awake and eager to participate. We like that. All right, we're over 80%. I'll give us 3 more seconds here. All right, we almost have 100% voting today. That's great. Okay, I'm going to share the results. So 85% of the attendees today are still in planning, 3% are in ongoing, and 12% have actually completed the email migration, but apps pending.
Okay, great. Thanks, Scott. Definitely, it's going to help people who are in the planning stage, because we are talking about some of the things that you should be considering if you have not considered already, and also some of the challenges our customers have faced, and we just wanted to share our journey with you. So one of the things that we've been noticing is the fact, one of the things that we've been noticing, especially across global organizations, they have footprints in many regions, and if you come from a Lotus background, then definitely these organizations have infrastructure spread out, and when they look at this entire migration aspect, it sometimes feels like it's a huge journey, and sometimes a little overwhelming also. Because of the complexities involved, especially for larger organizations, it most certainly is not a turn off here and turn on there kind of an affair. It's a more ongoing journey. It needs to be planned well. It needs to be executed well, and you also need to take into consideration the fact that the end users need to be brought on board with a new platform that they're going to be encountering. So one of the things that happens is, especially for larger organizations, is that you need this hybrid model. You need this, keeping sometimes, how do I coexist with what is there in my environment today, and how do I make this transition as smooth as possible for all the different people that are involved, all the different stakeholders. So, Katie, would you like to just share a little bit about the different modes of coexistence and some of the considerations with respect to the coexistence aspect of Office 365?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Gayatri. You said that initially it was complex and migrating from Lotus Notes to Office 365. Yes, it is complex, but if you see the end result when the full complete migration happens, so it's like everybody happy. So even though we have some difficulties when we do these migrations, but our end result is good. So let's discuss about this hybrid solutions. The notes and the exchange or exchange online, it's two different systems. So when you migrate, they are not able to talk each other, or they cannot make comfortness between Lotus Notes and as well as exchange online. So there are multiple options which depends on the organization and how they want to do the migrations, how quickly they want to do the migrations. So some small companies will go for a simple coexistence where they don't go for implementing a coexistence between the migrations, and they do the direct migrations to the Office 365. Larger organizations, they have to use the third-party tools, maybe binary tree or Quest tool. They can use it and they can go for a full-fledged coexistence as well as migration of data. There is another part which is very interesting, which is Microsoft Fast Track Center. So this Microsoft Fast Track Center will give making the Lotus Notes to Office 365 in a faster way. So that's why they call it a fast track. So they offer services for coexistence as well as data migration with limited data migration, say 90 days or so. So it's available.
So, Katie, do you recommend the Microsoft Fast Track?
So they want to move from.
Do you recommend
decision about using the third party? It is recommended for organizations who do not want to do the full-fledged data migration. Maybe they want to go for a small amount of data migration. So that's where the Microsoft Fast Track Center is recommended. Also, when you want to make faster migrations, the Microsoft Fast Track is the recommended way. And the good thing about it is free. So when you have a license, this service is available to the company. So that's why most of the larger organizations prefer to go for Fast Track Center, and they can complete the migrations quickly.
Right, and I think quickly is also a relative term, right? I mean, at least the larger organizations we've been working with, it's been anywhere from 12 to 18 months, especially because they have such a global footprint. It's not easy for every region to move that quickly, so they need to kind of balance out the infrastructure aspects of it along with the user adoption aspect of it. So, I mean, as you said, the quickly is a relative term. I also wanted to, highlight this entire ADFS, right? I think the need is to have a seamless experience for end users, which is available when, you have the single sign-on experience. Katie, can you just touch upon ADFS and AAD Connect a little bit more?
Yeah, so if the previous system is the Lotus Notes, and they have their own sign-ins and other stuff. So if you want to make the new future messaging system to be more user-friendly and only one account for logging in, so the Microsoft has the tool which is called AAD Connect. So you can synchronize all the AD user identity to the Office 365, and then you can use the same login option, or the best way is to go for ADFS implementation. So that will give the much benefits and user friendly as well when we build hybrid solutions.
Right, and the way the ADFS works, the overall like architecture of it is that you have the ADFS server sitting inside the organization, and then you do have the Azure lookups, right, which kind of checks whether the user authentication and whether based on whether the person has already been migrated, or if they are not yet migrated, it gives that kind of seamlessness which allows you to check whether the person should be moved on to the Office 365 messaging experience, or should they be left behind in the existing Notes experience. So I think it provides for some of that seamlessness, right, Katie?
Yeah, this is one of the advantage where users will get when they move from Lotus Notes to Office 365, where it works very much better than the Lotus Notes login version. So you can access anywhere. If you just need to have the Lotus Notes, you can access all other Office 365 collaborations, including SharePoint, Skype. So that's the beauty of the ADFS implementation when you do the hybrid solutions.
Right. And I think the other aspect that also comes into play is when you want the rich coexistence, because if you look at it, people are used to doing things like free time lookups. They are used to checking for calendar entries, and unless an organization plans for this, they may kind of miss out, because if you have your new Office 365 environment and it's a hybrid solution, if you don't have a rich coexistence enabled and it is not set up properly, then the people who have actually migrated over to Office 365 may not be able to look up free times of the people who have not yet moved, and this can cause a little bit of confusion in the organization. So one of the things I would say that when you're planning, you should take into account that you should definitely take into account that there is need for these kind of lookups, and also it is also to some extent driven by the culture of the organization, because it's based on how your people are used to working today. And if you want to retain this kind of working where they are, used to looking up people, they're used to looking up contacts, they're used to doing calendar sharing and working very seamlessly across global locations, then definitely this comes into play as a very important aspect of planning. And as Katie put it, yeah, the single sign-on implementation also becomes fairly important when you look at a seamless experience for your end users. Moving on, one of the things I know that we have faced is the fact that people don't really plan for the network configuration. It's one of those topics that generally say, yeah, we have everything that we need, and we should be able to migrate within X amount of time. But one of the challenges I know we have faced is when you actually put your hands to do the migration, sometimes the low bandwidth issues or the network configuration issues start making a difference and start affecting the timelines. Katie, can you share a little bit more on what people can do to avoid this, as well as your experience on what causes this?
Yeah, thank you. Sure. So, in terms of planning the network when you go for Office 365 migrations, the first point is that we need to make sure that all the firewalls and the proxy settings and all the URLs which are need to be opened, and it needs to be configured correctly, so that all the on-premises Exchange servers or AD or other hybrid system can able to communicate to the cloud, and also the end user machines should be able to reach seamlessly without any problems when start migrating and we are asking users to start using the cloud, and they find out, okay, the network is not opening and we getting some errors and all the stuff. So the first part was to make sure that we have all the settings or set as for the Microsoft recommendations, and then plan it well in advance, because in large organizations it will take lost time to implement any changes to the firewalls and other stuff. So the next part is the bandwidth. So most of the time the bandwidth requirement is slightly considered at the last moment or the end. So this bandwidth requirement, we need to do the calculations of this, how this bandwidth, what bandwidth is required, and how you're going to manage the bandwidth for the Office 365 migrations. So when we do this bandwidth calculations, the Microsoft provides the tools as well, how you can calculate the bandwidth requirement for the users, and how you can manage this bandwidth requirement. And large organizations, small ones, it will be very difficult for the small organizations to move, because generally they will have lower bandwidths that will make difficult. So the larger organizations will have more bandwidth, but they still need to do the planning, and they still need to make the the bandwidth calculations before the migrations. With reference to again the data migration, so I've based on my experience, some companies will decide to do, okay, I want to do only the few data, or I want to do the full data migrations. So when the data is located in different regions, and if you do not have the required networking and required bandwidth, then you will have problems when you do this data migrations. So we need to plan the data migration based on that. The bandwidth needs to be calculated. So this is one of the critical planning we need to do for the network configuration and bandwidth requirement.
The other aspect here is also, I would think, the other aspect is quite often, like we've seen, people just calculate bandwidth that is needed, post-migration scenario. So they probably do calculations that says, okay, in this region I have, say, 5,000 users, this is their typical behavior, and so my bandwidth is accommodated. And forget about the fact that, during the migration period, they're actually, if they're going to plan to migrate, a significant amount of data, even if it's just, say, 3 months, 90 days of worth of data, but the need during the migration is going to be a little different from how it will be when there is ongoing use. So there needs to be a little bit of a balance there. It should be planned for. And it can be adjusted later, but definitely during the migration, in order to keep to the timelines, in order to stick to a seamless experience, this becomes important. And I think the other aspect is also there are people for calendar and contacts, right, Katie?
Yes, the thing, the best recommendation when we come to this migration and batch-wise, the recommended option is to go for the migration with the batches instead of doing all users in one go. So we need to plan it accordingly so that it can be managed in the other way, in a best way, that we migrate only in batches so that we will not make problems for the bandwidth and other applications which are already running and used by the users. So there are options that the large organizations, when they have the Lotus Notes as their mail system and their applications are still running on the Lotus Notes, and they prefer to move the data less from Lotus Notes to the Office 365, because the users they can still use the notes data and applications in the Lotus Notes, and they can still refer. So they prefer to go for say 30 days of calendar or contacts, no emails. So it's all depends upon how you plan it and how much time you want to take for a migration. So if you want to migrate the full data, obviously it requires the entire migration project to be longer. But if you want to do only the contacts and the calendar, then the data is is very less when compared to full emails and attachments. So in that way, if you want to fast track the migrations and then avoid all this migration during the coexistence issues, so the companies prefer to go for the data, and which depends upon the company's decision to do which data to be transferred to the cloud and not. So that is true that it is possible to make migrations simple as well when you consider the data migration.
Correct. Yeah. And the other aspect that I have seen, quite a bit come up is when especially during the planning phases, is this big question on security, right? And Scott, why don't you run the second poll on security? I would like to understand the audience where their thought processes are.
Okay, I'll do that. So the next poll is, how do you feel about data security with respect to public cloud infrastructure? Are your end users concerned about their data? Is the organization concerned about its data? Or really both of you are concerned, both parties? So we're at half of us already voting. That's great. I'm a little bit surprised at the early voting results here. So give us about 4 more seconds to get in the last few votes, and I'll share the results. All right, I'm going to share the results. So 3% say, yeah, they're just the end users are concerned. 53% say the organization is concerned, and 43% say both end users and organization are concerned. So early on in the voting, it was just the organization was the big winner, but it's kind of equalized out there. So 3%,
right,
53%, and 43%. So okay.
Right. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, and this is what I have been seeing as well, right? The thing is, a lot of people are concerned. I mean, for a long time, you've seen that, yeah, it is in a data center, but then you have control over the entire infrastructure, you have control over the data, and suddenly with this entire cloud model, it feels both for the organization. When I say organization, I'm talking about the executives, the IT, all of them. There is this feeling of lack of control to say, hey, I'm giving my control out, and also to a lot of end users, because end users also wonder, I mean, if I store something, what will happen to it? Can someone else read this data, or can people, and especially with emails, I've had questions come up which says, on Office 365, can Microsoft read my emails? I mean, while it feels for people who are working with both the technology departments as well as Office 365 and Microsoft, these concerns are not to be trivialized, because this is a genuine concern that both organization level people as well as end users share, because it's new to them. It's completely like, this cloud, and going on to a public cloud infrastructure is very new. So I think one of the key things that we should talk about, and Katie, you can probably discuss a little bit of it, is about the Microsoft Trust Center.
Yes, thank you, Gayatri. So it is true that everybody is concerned when data is moved from on-premises to the cloud. The end user's perspective, it is well managed by the company organization managers and team. They can assure to the end users that, okay, even though it is stored under the Microsoft, but it is still secure, and all the data and emails are still secure. For the admin and the top management, when they concerned about the data, the Microsoft has all the answers and questions, and how they follow the security measures for all the emails and their data center. So they have strict policies, and they also have all the legal requirements and things. So the more details is also available on this the website called Microsoft Trust Center, where you can find all kinds of information and the latest approvals from the legal departments from US or Europe and other regions. In terms of the end users, they also have the options of multi-factor authentication, and all the data which communicates between the client and the cloud. They are secured, and they runs with the TLS and SSL. So it's very much secure, and all the answers, and they also do give the auditing for all the required auditing purpose.
That's right.
They generate different kinds of auditing. Yep.
Yeah, the other aspect
Gayatri,
here,
can you add it?
Yeah. So the other aspect I wanted to bring out here also is the fact that the legal department. I know for sure, for example, in Europe, you do have this concern that data from the European Union should not be stored on data centers or the public cloud, which is like now outside the European Union. And these are kind of also the aspects that are important to organizations, because they are also legally bound by it. And one of the things that we did notice, especially with respect to Microsoft Trust Center, is they have all these approvals out there. These discussions between the EU, they have a notification which clearly, showcases how they segregate the data, how their data from Europe stays in European data centers and does not go across different data centers and things like that. And so that is an important aspect which kind of goes towards allaying the organization level concerns. Also for the administrators as well as the IT heads, the certificates that Microsoft uses, the kind of authentication algorithms that they use, the encryption, even some of that is described. So there's a lot of transparency involved with respect to security, which is useful because when you know what you are getting into, it's always much easier to digest compared to having a cloud of to having to not know what I'm really getting into. This is always like, the transparency helps. The other aspect that we have noticed quite a bit with respect to allaying end user concerns on this is not just about security, but about every aspect of it, is the fact that a lot of organizations think that, hey, I'm just moving with Outlook, I'm just moving with Office, why do I really need to do adoption? But if you notice, it is a new system. Even though people have been using emails for like eons, it's still a new area that people need to be, adopted into. They have to be like, welcomed into, and they need to have their concerns, and they have to be like, getting as productive as they were in their earlier system. So we do see that, having a very structured adoption program, which is started along with a strategy. So if you're planning for a migration, plan for adoption too. Probably like, construct a journey map. What would an end user feel when they actually like, move from their notes-based email environment to their new environment? And most importantly, and this is something that we have seen makes a difference, is the preparation phase, because that's where you need to look at also governance, because sometimes it's like, these are the questions that trip people up. Okay, now that we are on the cloud, am I allowed to do ABC? Am I allowed to send out emails like, to all these people? Marketing departments, which are used to, having mailing databases and mailing boxes, they come and ask these questions saying, can I do the same thing? Can I run the kind of campaigns I used to earlier with also the new environment? And it is important to kind of address these concerns. It's also important to have clarity from a governance perspective in terms of limits, in terms of like, the way users are going to engage with the new environment. In terms of support, it helps to prepare ahead of time. And it is needed for certain aspects of Office 365 that there is a well thought out enablement, like not just training, but kind of hand-holding, creating a set of super users who will engage with the communities, different communities, and bring people on board it. Even though you may go from one region to another, maybe you're just doing a very batch by batch approach. Even with that group by group approach, it helps when you have like, a conscious effort in enabling people to kind of utilize the new platform very effectively. The other two that we have like, noticed really helps, and this is like, like I said, an activation is more very specific use cases that they used to do. For example, if someone is used to running their email campaigns with their notes environment, and this happens in larger organizations, right? They actually have a custom application that helps them like run mailing databases, which are like, helping them do their campaigns, or there may be a custom CRM. And the question that will happen is, how am I going to? I used to do everything in my notes environment. Sometimes they're just not like, clear that how am I going to do with my Office 365 environment what I did earlier? How will I work with it? So having specific enablement programs for those people where they are used to working with a combination of their mail and applications together to kind of ensure that that they haven't they are not missing out on the same functionality, to kind of like assuage all their fears, saying yes, it can be going on the same way as they used to earlier. That really helps. And of course, it is important to sustain this momentum and make sure like it is held up as more and more new people are joining into the new platform, because it's going to be, as I said, larger organizations, it can be anywhere from 12 to 18 months, and even if it's just 3 months, it's not as if everyone's coming on board at the same time. So we feel like, especially if you plan for adoption ahead of time, this is not like, a lot of effort, but sustained effort over a period of time that can kind of like, pay some rich dividends. Katie, you want to share anything specific on the adoption front? What you have seen work as well?
Yes, in terms of adoption, the main thing you mostly covered in most of the topics. The one thing the users or the admin struggle is the training part. So before they start using the Office 365 collaboration tools, they need to be getting training from online or mass training. So that's the other option that they can get well, knowing about what these features are and how this Office 365 Skype works and how the Outlook, because they are in a different platform. So the training is also the one of the important part in adoption.
Right. So a quick third poll. Scott, can you run the third poll? We would like to understand, what people have found challenging. Yeah.
Okay, on this poll, you can select more than one answer. So go ahead and respond with which aspect of migration have you felt to be most challenging for those of you that are going through it or have gone through it, or if you anticipate this being a challenge. Okay, we're over half of us voted already. Let's give us about 5 more seconds and then we'll share the results. Over 75% of us have voted. All right, we'll go ahead and share the results. So 63% say that preparation is going to be the challenge. 67% believe migration is going to be a challenge. Only 33% say post-migration support is going to be a challenge, and end-user support 27%. So I think that's very typical, Guide. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think so. Though I do see people when they actually go through the migration process, they also find the post-migration support, just the time when, just after migration, they also find that a little bit of more challenge is what we've seen in our experience. And one of the key things that happens is, and what we've seen is resourcing considerations. A lot of organizations take up this migration. They have help. They do have a vendor or a partner who helps them during the migration, but they also try and say, what, have my people also support you together. And sometimes the skill sets don't match, right? The people who have been supporting on the Lotus Notes front, not all their skills can be mapped onto Office 365, and also the kind of skills needed during migration is a little different from the kind of skills that are needed only for supporting. So these are definitely some of the things that we've seen. Having a plan for adequate resourcing and adequate support during this entire migration process definitely helps. And as a lot of you guys have pointed out, the preparation makes all the difference, because the more things you can plan for, the more things you can nail down ahead of time, a lot less happens actually during the migration. The migration goes pretty smooth. And Katie, I would like you to share a little bit more on the, some key tips to success, as well as some of the things that you've seen during the support aspect of it.
Yes, exactly. So this is exactly what we are experiencing, the planning and preparations. That's where we need to put a lot of efforts when we have this planning phase, we need to consider all the options and all possible options, and then choose the correct path for migrations and setting up the architecture. So we need to decide what kind of there will be two kinds of architecture when you move from existing Lotus Notes to the Office 365. So the first one is the intermediate one, that is the architecture which is when users start migrating from Lotus Notes to the Office 365. The next one is once you have migrated all the users and you only have Office 365 and then Active Directory and ADFS as the backend. So we need to clearly define what we're going to do and how you're going to achieve the intermediate architecture, and then how it looks for final architecture for the migrations. So these are the things we need to consider. Example, when we do the AAD Connect setup and then we synchronize all the AD accounts to the Office 365 with the Microsoft AAD Connect sync. So you have an option to choose what needs to be the unique ID. So you need to define exactly how you want to use the unique ID, and then the same unique ID is also used for ADFS. So if you miss or if you not planned well for this kind of a what will be the source unique ID and what will be the ADFS unique ID to be used, then you will have a problems when users move from especially when the on-premises environment has a different ADs and different forest. When you move between the ADs, then your entire system will break because you will not have the exact unique IDs matching and you can't use it for sign in. So this is one of the simple example. The simple looks simple, but it has a large influence on the overall architecture. In terms of resource activity, the thing is that we need to have a training for all existing team. They are already working on Exchange or they may be working on the Lotus Notes, but they still need to have some knowledge on how the Office 365 features can be configured, how it works. And here there is PowerShell as well. So when we start the migrations, most of the people not aware of this PowerShell, and it is, as you say, the PowerShell is powerful. So we need to have good knowledge and good understanding of how this PowerShell works and how you can modify or change in MOS settings in Office 365. So we need to have a training for the admins, and we need to have clear information how they can work. And the second tip what we experienced is that when we have this Office 365, the level of access you need to give to the different team, so that needs to be planned very carefully. The Office 365 will provide basic access levels. You have this global admin, you have Skype admin, you have Exchange admin. So the tip here is that minimize number of global admins. When you make this Office 365 tenant and you start migrating and working on this, minimize to less number of global admins so that you control what's going on in Office 365 and who is instead of giving everybody the global admin and then later struggling to find what happened and other things. The recommendation or the tip here is to reduce the global admins. So this is one of the best way to control. This is also one of the difficult one. that the people try to do some changes and then admin will try to execute it, and next time it tries to find it what happened, so you could not know what happened. So the other point is to document all the changes or what has been happened, and so that you can better control the overall changes in the tenant. Gayatri, do you want to add a few more topics on this or a few more information?
Yeah, and I think the other aspect that I would also touch upon is the adoption aspect of it here again. Though we talked about it a little earlier, making sure that right during your planning phase, as I said, have a journey map for the different, like what would be the journey map for your C-level executives? What will be the journey map for your IT users? What would be for your administrators, and what would it be for a generic end user? That will kind of like make sure that how you approach this entire migration will then get derived from the success factors you set for these different journeys that you want these people to take. It kind of like clarifies a lot of things. It also helps you put it together, and then as Katie says, once you define who is going to have that kind of access, then automatically you start like restricting accesses, you start like documenting what you have done. You kind of direct each group of people in a particular way so that their experience is really seamless. So that's definitely I would add as a tip to take away from for successes. That kind of like brings us to we try to cover as many different topics that might be of interest. So we are open to questions. Whatever we can, we'll try and answer right now, and if we have to get back to you, we will. So Scott, we are open for questions.
Okay, thank you. We do have several questions lined up and ready to go. The first question is how complicated is ADFS to implement?
Katie?
Yeah, so it's not that complex when we see the Office 365 as a setup. People generally use the if we have a large organization, they straight away go to the ADFS so that they do not want to make the changes later once users are migrated. So the preferred way is to go for ADFS setup initially before or just before starting the migration, instead of trying to implement the ADFS after the migration. It may be complex, but it is not that complex that it's best to plan it before the migration, then the things will be much better.
Right, and I think in my opinion, the tool itself is like it's the key thing is to kind of plan it. It is much easier for organizations. There are two types of organizations that, and we've seen both, where you have AD as their primary authentication, even though their email is on Domino. And for such organizations, the implementation of ADFS is fairly straightforward because it kind of like seamlessly works together. Organizations that use Domino as their so Domino behaves as the LDAP for a lot of different areas. It is a little more complex, but it's not like as Katie puts it, it's not extraordinary complexity. It's just a matter of planning ahead of time. And as he definitely says, if you are a large organization, start with ADFS installation even before migration, because it kind of reduces a lot of heartburn later down the line. That's what we would say.
Okay.
Yeah, and it adds value to the end users, more comfortable with. They see the change from Lotus Notes to when they move the Office 365. This is one of the major change for the end users. So it helps for the migration and end users as well.
Okay, perfect. Can you speak to specifics about bandwidth? What do you consider low bandwidth?
Okay, so in terms of low bandwidth, it depends upon how much data you want to move. So if you are moving less data, then the bandwidth, we have the calculation. So we need to put all the details into the tool, where it says, okay, you have so many users and you want to move so much data, or you want to make so many Outlook connections or Skype connections. Then it will give you the result of how much bandwidth you required. So this is how you need to calculate for both migrations as well as after migration.
Okay, so a follow-up question to that is there a spreadsheet or something that helps do all the calculation?
Yes, there is a spreadsheet for doing all the calculations, which is available in the Microsoft website or support center.
Okay, perfect. Guy, did you want to add anything additional to that?
No, I think that's good. I think
Okay.
that's good.
Okay, perfect. I heard you jump in there. If I wasn't sure if I cut you off, so I do apologize if I had done that. A follow-up question. What is the largest migration that Maarga Systems has done in terms of mail size and global presence? I mean, is there a...
So we've been working with customers who have probably about 60,000 people across the world, every region possible, and there are multiple such migrations ongoing at this point in time.
Right. And so, I mean, it'll span anywhere from smaller organizations, 1,000,
right,
all the way up to, this other global organization. So you've seen from one end of the spectrum to the other. Perfect.
That's right.
So next question, is there a baseline on how long it takes to do a migration?
Now, it's very specific to the organization, and it also is very specific in terms of what you want to migrate. As Katie put it right, there are organizations, because of legal reasons and how they are structured, they want all their data migrated. I mean, personally, I may not recommend it too much, because we know how complex Lotus Notes environment can get, right? Even with respect to just emails, you could have archives, and then you have your current emails and a whole bunch of things. But there are organizations that say everything should be migrated. Those tend to become quite complex because of how you need to set up the Office 365 tenant and how you want to bring things over and things like that. Even though they may be a very small organization, it's not just the number of people. There are even some of the larger organizations we've known who've just decided to go on a greenfield mode. Literally they just said, hey, I know I'm going to just retain my existing notes because they had a large number of applications. It's going to take time, whatever it is. They said, I'm going to go greenfield, which means I just make sure that all the people are loaded onto my Office 365 tenant, and then they don't get anything necessarily from their notes environment at all. And that has been fairly easy, obviously, as you would think. So there's no baseline per se, but if you are large, that's what I would say. If you are large, when I'm saying large, it's not just the number of users, it's number of users, the amount of data you want to migrate, and the number of regions that you are on, especially because if you have a global presence, you don't want everyone to jump onto Office 365 at the same time. You have to go step by step. You can expect it anywhere from 8-9 months all the way to 18 months. We've seen both. So that's what I would leave it at.
Okay. Perfect. All right. How is calendaring, scheduling, and resource rooms handled in the Office 365 environment? Is it somewhat similar to Notes, or is it really different?
It's similar to the notes, but the look and feel is a little different, and the working style is a little different, like how you access the rooms and resources, is a little different from the Lotus Notes. But it gives the similar functionality at the base, but the look and feel and how you schedule it, things are different.
Okay, but there is resource and room handling as
Yep.
similar to Notes. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
All right, we're actually kind of at the end of time here, so if there are any questions we did not cover during the session, either Guy or KT will respond to you directly. There were some great other suggestions to maybe do a poll to find out if companies are really interested in coexistence or if they're okay to live without the free and busy time lookup. So perhaps in a future webinar we'll bring that up, or maybe in a follow-up email we could do that. But I do appreciate everyone's questions. And Guy and KT, I appreciate your time and preparation for this webinar. I'm going to give the time back to you for final comments, and if there's a way for companies to contact you, if you have that slide, you could certainly display that. Oh, and you've got it up there. Sorry, I've got one of my screens covering that. So perfect way to contact them. But Guy, back to you.
Yeah, so for all the folks who are attending, I would just leave you with one word: prepare. Because we've seen, organization comes to us with lesser preparation than they should have done, and then said, like, can you please help us sort out some of the issues? Yes, we can, but then that's not the best way to go through it. So I will leave this with prepare.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you for your time, and thank you for everyone who attended. Again, just a reminder, we did record this, so if colleagues were not able to attend, or if you want to watch the replay, we'll get a link out to you as soon as we can. And I hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for doing a great job, as usual.
No, thank you. All right, thanks, KT.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Scott, and thank Gayatri.
Okay, take care.